Welcome back to the podcast and today's episode. On today's episode, I welcome Robert Grigore, where we're going to be talking about therapy, EMDR, and the impact on these kind of tools for our mental health and our self-esteem and much, much more. So I'm excited to dive in this, what I'm excited about having for this conversation. So just a quick introduction to Robert, and then we'll dive in. So Robert Grigore is the founder and clinical director of Grigore Counselling and Associates, a Canada-wide mental health clinic specialising in advanced EMDR therapy for professionals. As a registered clinical counsellor, EMDR DRIA certified EMDR therapist and EMDR consultant, and published author of the book You Need Therapy, EMDR, Real People with Real Problems, Getting Real Help. Robert has personally helped transform the lives of over 1,000 individuals, from those living on the streets to CEOs in some of the largest companies to celebrities and everyone in between. So, Robert, welcome to the show today. Glad to have you on dive in today. So, Robert, first of all, it'd be really interesting to hear a little bit about, for the listener who may not be familiar, what is EMDR, and actually what got you so fascinated and into this area? Maybe a little bit about your story and journey into this.
Absolutely. It's a great story. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So as you can tell, that's quite the mouthful. So EMDR is the acronym. What essentially it is, I mean, I could talk for literally hours on it and geek right out because I love EMDR and neuroscience. But essentially what EMDR is, it's a standardized approach of therapy that allows individuals to, let's say, consciously rewire their brains, like conscious neuroplasticity, allowing individuals to literally rewire how they think and feel about particular events that have happened in the past, allows them to adapt appropriately to what's going on now in their life. So it's basically like neutralizing anxiety, depression, trauma, addiction, relationship troubles, whatever an individual has. This is a fast route to basically eliminating all of that. So does that communicate pretty well?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's kind of like, diving into some of those things that are like inside of us, and then being able to neutralize that. And yeah, there's I've certainly had that in my life, and it's always an ongoing process. I find of just like, these things and certain feelings of the body. So yeah,
Yes.
it sounds like
Yes.
you're helping people sort of identify some of that, going back into the body, some of those stories from the past that may be limiting us going forward.
You got it 100%. And I can obviously dive deeper into that. But how I got into EMDR was an interesting path. So I was first a talk therapist. I got into that, and I did, I followed all the greats, Freud and Carl Jung and, Rollo May and just all these great people out there, Carl Rogers. And I thought that the way to do therapy was this long, drawn out process, which I easily thought that, having 20-year relationships with clients was totally normal. And like, that's what would be a fun experience as a therapist. And coming out of my master's, I started into working with male survivors of sexual abuse for the agency actually called BC Society for Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse, also a long name, so the acronym is shorter. But yeah, I dove right into the deep end, and I was starting to talk with these individuals literally every single week for about 90 minutes each, full caseload for 3 years. And, I did all the things that a talk therapist would do well, like, sat down, I gave them a good space, we talked. Some of them disclosed for the very first time the things that happened to them. So it was really powerful and really healing. But after about the 3-year mark, I started to get burnt out. And I started to think, oh my gosh, like I just graduated. I'm like 3 years into my master's, like after my master's, 3 years into working. How am I going to keep this up for 30 years? I can't do that. I'm done. So I remembered in my master's education, this thing called EMDR. And I thought, okay, well, let me just give that a shot. Let me just see what that training is. I found a training, sat down, set it up, paid thousands of dollars for the training. And on the very first day, you know, the instructor, great guy, he's a legend, Marshall Walensky, he goes, you do this weird thing like this, you wave your hand in front of their face and the client follows it with their eyes and so they're supposed to get better. And they're like, uh-huh, yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, noon, when noon comes, I'm out for lunch and I'm not coming back. And it was like, such a waste of time for me. And then I was like, Robert, you know, you spend all this money and, you know, you need the credits to, you know, to stay with my professional board. So just suck it up, buttercup, and do the training. So I stayed. By the time lunch came along, I heard some case studies. I saw some videos. I was like, oh, okay, some research was there. Maybe I'll stay. So I stayed. Long story short, I tried it with my clients, the same guys, you know, for 3 years straight. One of them, the very first one goes, Robert, before EMDR, he goes, Robert, if I ever saw my abuser again, I would effing kill him. He used a little bit more colorful language than that. And I go, yeah, of course. That's anger, get in touch with it, feel it. Yeah, like, let's do that. That's great. I didn't say that wrong with it. It's all good. And then EMDR, 3 90-minute sessions, like that. And, you know, those are my eye movement sounds. And he goes, Robert, if I saw my abuser again, like in the mall or something, I could walk up, shake his hand, talk to him, and I'd be civil. Like, we won't be friends, obviously. Don't get me wrong, but I could actually talk to him.
Wow.
Holy crap! This EMDR stuff is amazing. So, and then the next client, same thing. Next client, same thing. I'm like, okay, EMDR. That's what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Sold.
Wow. Powerful, powerful, and it's something you do obviously very regularly. It's something you do very regularly now, like on a
It's all I
regular
do.
basis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's for you? What's like the main differences between like talking therapy and this? Because I know you've transitioned a little bit. Because I know I found like therapy like helpful, and I've tried all these different like modalities and different things. But yeah, just be useful to hear from you.
Yeah. So I've actually grown in my answer to this. Before I was like, no, you just got to do EMDR and everything else isn't this. And you know what? I've actually come quite a long ways in understanding what's going on in all of the well, not all of the therapies, but EMDR, CBT, some of those other therapies that are really popular. All of the therapies that are out there are going to, number one, build some adaptive neural networks. So your talk therapies, your CBT, they're doing wonderful jobs of building. First, they're going to sort of activate the nervous system. You're going to understand, you know, where this trauma or where this stuff came from, your origin stories, you know, and get to kind of understand, you know, more about yourself. You're building that awareness. You might learn some fantastic tools, coping strategies, how to deal with this on a daily basis. That is not nothing. That is a big, big, big deal for many people around the world. That is a huge, huge thing. Where EMDR takes that is a little bit further in the sense that if an individual, like I'll share my story a little bit. I'm the survivor of a couple of domestic violence situations with my exes. I've had addictions since I was little. I struggled with anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. Like, I've kind of been through a lot of the things that I help now. So it's like the universe's way of preparing me, I guess, and giving me some guidance here. And so I remember seeing my talk therapist. He was great. He was really, really good. He's a Jungian psychoanalysis guy. He was terrific, very, very nice. And I learned what happened to me, who gave it to me, like where I picked this stuff up from, and I learned more of coping strategies, but it didn't really change how my body felt. I would talk about these distressing relationships. I would get all activated in the sessions, and I would immediately go right afterwards and go drink across the street at the bar. So I joked that my therapy tab for that day was like $400, $500, $600 because I would drink $200, $300, after that. So it's not that wasn't helpful. It didn't actually change what's going on in my body. There's a big myth out there, probably since Freud, that, insights are enough for change. And it's just simply not the case. Insights are great to build your awareness, but to actually change, you have to change how you feel. And then your brain and your nervous system goes, oh, okay, I guess that doesn't bother me anymore. So now I can just move on from that. So EMDR actually allows for that to happen. So if you're in talk therapy and you, like me, I'm activating my nervous system. I'm feeling all charged up. I'm in my fight or flight, right? Oh, I'm not feeling good. And then we just talk about it. That's only using the left brain, right? The prefrontal cortex. We're trying to get new strategies and try to reason our way through that potentially, right?
Yeah.
And then EMDR actually helps you feel differently. So you process information from all these other times in your life where you have this other adaptive information, and actually these bilateral movements, what they're called, it stimulates both hemispheres of the brain, creates new neural pathways, and it's very distracting. You can't hang on to the distressing material. It's called taxing the working memory. You tax the working memory, and then the brain just lets it go, because you can't hang on to, like my client, he couldn't hang on to the abuse memories
Mm.
and follow my hand. What the heck is this guy doing? And I have to follow that, and like, what? And then
Mm.
it just allows it to fall apart. And then the adaptive stuff comes in, because that's really, we're adaptive creatures. So that's really the main
Mm.
differences. And I guess the other main difference is that time. With talk therapy, I spent 2-3 years in talk therapy. EMDR, we're thinking 2-3 months, right? And the way that I do EMDR, it could be 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 days, even if we really do it in certain different ways that I do my EMDR. So
Oh, wow.
there's some pretty major differences. It's not like one's better than the other. They're just both, you can use them both very effectively together.
Mm. No, it sounds like some very powerful transformation you're making with EMDR. And yeah, I like what you said about there's the body element as well. There's like the talking therapy is definitely, I like personally, I just always like, I'm a big fan of encouraging people to talk and then share, I always also believe with the right person, some people it's not best to share with, but
Yep.
talking, getting out of that mind a little bit, getting some of that stuff out of the mind is helpful. But yeah, like sometimes I've been in those situations now in my past, or like people I've spoken to or even coached in the past, where it's like there's like a situation and suddenly the whole body's activated, like there's a thought and there's something, and maybe
Yep.
something like you could either see something on social media, right, or just like see a text or a message or something, and it's like activated something in the body, like some kind of rejection, maybe when you're younger, or some kind of like failure or embarrassment or something, and the whole body's like taken over. And I personally found that it's very hard for the mind to be like, okay, feel positive, like all that kind of thing, right? So
Yes.
yeah, I love what you're doing, going into the body a bit deeper.
I call that white knuckling it through.
Yeah.
Just try to think positively, and yeah, it's really hard in those states because you're triggered. You're actually in a different neural network. You
Mm,
might learn a cool strategy in talk therapy or any you learn this
mm,
good stuff, but they don't mix up. They don't match up during those moments when you're actually triggered. You might feel like you're 5 or 6 again, and like your 5 or 6 year old maybe doesn't have a breathing strategy.
mm.
So.
Yeah, yeah, certainly, and kind of like those intense moments in like childhood, or something around that. So no, it's yeah, a really good distinction I think between them. I want to kind of move on. We were touching on it a little bit about before the show about like the polyvagal theory, which kind of links very much to this. Yeah, just be useful to hear kind of how how you would describe it and kind of how you would maybe use it with your work.
Yes, it's changed my life in a good way and my practice in a good way. Before this, I just sort of thought of, there was we had this window of tolerance.
Mm,
I can't remember now who created that, but there was this window of tolerance, and that's what I used, and it really helped for a while. But the polyvagal theory took that and just really extended that. So essentially, what the polyvagal theory is we've got three different distinct nervous system responses to stress. Okay, and this is based upon evolution. If you believe in that, if you don't, it's fine too. But there's we started as in this like brainstem response, and then we grew and evolved to have this limbic system, and then we evolved to have this prefrontal cortex, which is we as humans use. So there's three distinct spots. The very bottom, this green zone, is called a ventrovagal, and it's this calm, grounded, peaceful. It's wonderful. Right, this is where we want to be. Stressor happens. We talk about it. We feel really good. It's okay. We can have a little bit of stress in that and in that space and still be very grounded and handle it
mm,
effectively. In fact, when I work with my high-performing professionals, I think of that little tiny bit of stress as the peak state. right? This is when you're just, the flow state, peak state, you call it different things. It's when you're just enough stress that you're focused on something, but not too much that it's like, I have to run away or I have to fight. So once the stress gets a little higher, we get into this fight or flight zone. This is hyperarousal. Okay, this is what happens when most people have heard of it. On the fight side, you've got some frustration and some anger, and then it goes all the way up to rage. And on the flight side, we've got a little bit of concern or worry, up to anxiety, right up to fear and panic. And in that zone, this is where you still feel like you've got a little bit of control, because you can either fight off the saber-toothed tiger or run away from the saber-toothed tiger. You're still in control, but when the stress gets too great, then we cross this little imaginary line here where our system flips and can no longer handle it by running or fighting, and we go into this freeze or collapse zone. And this is hypoarousal. It's another dorsal vagal response here, but it's a complete shutdown. This is like when you see like an animal in the wild playing dead. That's what it's doing, right? So it's absolute complete, worst experience. It looks like narcolepsy or catatonia. People are literally frozen. I've had clients that are frozen for extended periods of time. Very painful to watch and to be in, I imagine. But that's what's happening, and it's a survival response. Don't get me wrong. Right? Like if you think about those National Geographic, shows, and you got the gazelle running away from the lion, and it's in that fight or flight, but then the lion gets it, and then it's like got it by the throat, and then you see it go limp, right? And the lioness takes it to her cubs, let's say, drags like, look, hey guys, family, I got some food, some dinner here for you, and brings it over, and then in that moment in time, when the lioness leaves and goes to fetch her cubs, even so, the gazelle is actually not dead. It's limp. The body does these amazing things. It starts to shut down organs in the least important organs. Like you don't really need your gallbladder, you don't need your liver right this second. Your kidney's kind of not necessary in this minute. You need your heart, you need your lungs, you need your brain, right? So as the lioness goes away, the gazelle's sitting there and can hear there's a space. Lioness is let go, and then it starts to fire back online these other organs and shift back down into this fight or flight, gets up, and it's gone. So that's the adaptive response of the shutdown. So it's very helpful. Up in there, that's where you got your dissociation, your depression. Depression is not something you catch. It's a state in your body, right? Hopelessness is up there, powerlessness is up there, shame response, shutdown, addiction, all that stuff is in that red zone where when you're in this, it basically feels like whatever's going on in your body is so overwhelming that you are preparing for death. And that's why addictions, for example, are so difficult for people, because the disturbance inside they feel is so awful that they grab this lever, whatever it is, alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, you pick it, doesn't matter. You pull this lever and, I feel better. And then your nervous system is back into a manageable state. So I always say people aren't broken. Their nervous system's responding to patterns that they picked up for all of the right reasons in the past. But, it can be changed.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love how you outlined it. I'd say it's even better than how it is in the flip chart, which is amazing. So that's a really good journey you took us through there. And yeah, the kind of the red state, the dorsey sort of like vagal, when you're in that intense state of kind of like shutting down. That's kind of, would you see that as when people, in that state of struggling to get out of bed day to day as well?
Yep. Depression. It's not all the way that they're literally frozen. Like a good freezing example is like, there's a natural disaster, there's a tsunami's coming, and you're like, why is that person not moving? Hello, there's a tsunami coming.
Yeah.
Frozen. Total shutdown, right? And that's a survival response, shutting everything down. That it's a painkiller. And so the individuals don't actually feel any pain when something awful happens. Or rape victims is another great example, and they sort of shut down if they have to. They can't. If I fight this person off, I might die. It's probably better for me to go limp. This all happens like that in your nervous system. It's better for me to go limp and dissociate and pretend like I'm not here, and now I survived. And your body says, hey, good job. You survived that awful thing that happened to you. The next time that you're in a situation, do the exact same thing. That's trauma. Anytime the nervous system is overwhelmed and powerless and there's a feeling of danger in there somewhere, it's trauma.
Mm. And trauma has a huge impact on the nervous system, of course, and don't even know it's there because there's so many events we go through, right, in life. Um,
Yes.
so so yeah, with the obviously the you touched a little bit on addiction as well there, and like some of the behaviours, and it can come in all sorts of forms. I've certainly found, like you mentioned like there's alcohol, there's drugs, there's sex, there's like even TV or social media is a huge one. Phones one, like something I'm always always trying to work on. I've started like limit my time a little bit with that, and I think that's an easy one. But for you, like, is EMDR like to help you with some of those addictions a little bit? But is there also some other measures like you see people you've worked with had to put in place as well, like certain preventions alongside the EMDR?
Yeah, it can be. There has to be something adaptive to get to. That's sort of a way of looking at
Mm,
it. Like there's sort of two different neural networks. There's the adaptive neural network, and then there's the maladaptive neural network. And the
mm,
EMDR, helps to eliminate the maladaptive and bridge the adaptive to the maladaptive stuff. So it's kind of like Pac-Man, if you will, is going to come and eat the stuff.
mm,
So if there's nothing adaptive to get to, then EMDR needs something else to go in there. So this is where some great strategies from a coach or from a therapist or from a treatment program or whatever, you can learn some wonderful things on YouTube or these podcasts. You can learn some great stuff that builds the neurological network, the adaptive response. For some people that are, say, in a substance dependency, like
mm,
they're literally, they're dependent upon alcohol, they're dependent upon methadone, they're dependent upon something that's a chemical. Then and if it would be dangerous to stop it, like alcohol, if you've been drinking every single day for like 3 years or something like that, and you stop, that could be deadly. I mean, people can literally have heart attacks and die. They need to taper off slowly. So we need to have some space in there so we can detox, with a team of medical professionals, for example. And then when the body has some experiences of sobriety, then we can bring in EMDR and finish the job. But you don't have to be entirely sober for EMDR to help with addictions. It's just it's whatever the person's goal is. Essentially, what EMDR is doing is we're unlinking the addictive pattern. So the substance or behavior doesn't create this positive feeling that we actually are addicted to. People are addicted to the feeling of relief or the feeling of numbness or the feeling of power or control that they have in their body. That's what becomes very addictive. Yes, there's a chemical component too, but that feeling is what we have to unlink in the brain and the nervous system. I don't need to do X to get Y. Okay, so we unlink that. We teach other skills if necessary, or a client can go and learn other skills wherever else. And then that basically that addict part of their brain goes, oh, okay, I guess I can actually feel that relief in this way too. I can do
mm,
some yoga, I can do some meditation, I can go for a run, I can do this, I can talk to a friend. Like the list goes on of things that you can do. But what we're really looking at is whatever the feeling is that you get when you do the addiction, how else can you feel that same feeling
mm.
without the addiction, right? So maybe it's writing in a book, listening to podcasts, maybe it's going for a run, whatever that might be, and you go, oh yeah, that feels really good. That's a path to managing.
Yeah,
Does that
so
help?
it's yeah, no, that's a great answer. Kind of like looking at something to move towards, like you said, or kind of put it in its place whilst you're doing some of that like EMDR work or just like inner work as well. No, I love it, Robert. That's great. I'm just curious, like for the listener wanting to maybe develop a bit more self awareness. EMDR sounds amazingly like beneficial, and you got therapy out there. Is there any self awareness or practices that you have found particularly useful, you've seen clients find particularly useful, that have really helped them create like more awareness in themselves and yeah, connect with themselves a little bit more? Because I know that's a struggle for many people, especially in this busy
Yeah,
world.
absolutely. And time is limited, so you need something that like gets right to it and pretty quickly. To answer that, I've actually created my own show on YouTube. It's called The Mental Health Show with Robert Grigore.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
and it's an answer. I've been wanting to do it for years and years and years. And so right now there's a lot of self-help videos. I've started to do my own interviews. So I'm learning from you, a master at this craft. But on there, there's some great exercises. One of them in particular is the container and the calm place. And essentially what we're doing with these visualizations is understanding where you feel something in the body and really getting to know it and utilizing all of these different senses that we have, sight, sound, smell, body sensations, all that stuff, to work with body sensations and distresses. It helps people to get sort of more of a grip, more of a handle on what they're feeling and then actually do something with it. It's not like getting rid of it or eliminating it. That would be EMDR's fourth phase, desensitizing. This is EMDR's second phase. There's 8 phases to EMDR, and this would be giving the person some tools, some practical strategies. So there's lots of great tools that I have on that page. But you can also find lots of things all over the place. You sort of Google like self-help strategies. You Google, different ways to manage your nervous system. But there's lots and lots. So I would send my clients to my YouTube channel to learn and kind of practice some of these things in between sessions. Like I can't be there 24 hours a day with everybody. So, that could be a great strategy to just sort of help and learn a little bit more.
So plenty of tools there. So yeah, definitely check out Robert's channel and his work in general. We're going to touch on it in a minute. But yeah, it sounds like it's beneficial, kind of like combination of tools to check in with both your mind and body. Sounds like you're offering as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, with the mind and the body. I found personally, breath work really enhanced the quality of my life, and I trained as a practitioner as one. So it was, yeah, that's been a really powerful one, and it's going deep into the body. And I lead people through it, and just the stuff that comes up, it's like, wow. It's not an expectation of having a release each time. You don't put expectation on it, but it's just sometimes the things that come out from the body, you're like, where was I forgot about that memory, and it's like, wow, that was emotionally charged. So yeah,
I
definitely resonate with that.
You were so right with that. Before I was a therapist, I was actually a massage practitioner,
Mm.
and I would take people through these
Oh
these really
yeah.
deep massages. And every now and then, I touch a certain spot on the body, and I just have this big response from the client, like overwhelming, oh, like the panic response. And like at that time, I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but that's a trauma response. You touch something, a certain spot, and like in the back or whatever, and something came up just where the body holds it. So breath work is so powerful. You can activate the vagus nerve and really calm yourself. And yeah, highly recommend breath work. I'm glad that you're doing that. Thank you for helping people with that.
No, it's a great one. It helped me definitely work for a lot, and it's still do my practice weekly or bi-weekly depending. But yeah, I like what you touched on being a massage therapist as well, and getting the certain parts of their body. I completely forgot about that. A couple of people mentioned that. It's yeah, just the amount of things the body stores sometimes we're not even aware going into those ones, right? And yoga, even like I've personally not experienced it when I've done yoga. Maybe I need to do longer sessions. Mine are quite short and stretching out because I do a lot of strength work, a lot of exercise, and I need to stretch a little bit more to loosen off. But it's yoga for me. That's what it is for me. But I know people do yoga and it's like longer ones, and they've had like releases from their body, like emotional releases as well. So getting into
So
that body, so powerful. I love
yes, yeah, trauma informed yoga can really help with that too. It's all really helpful. Everything that you do is helping.
Oh, amazing. And yeah, EMDR obviously a very powerful tool, it sounds like, to kind of go through, accompanied by like things like therapy, which is obviously good for the mind as well and getting that out. So yeah, Robert, thank you so much for everything you've shared today. I know you've got a ton more resources and value offers such as your YouTube channel. So yeah, just before we sort of like wrap up, where can the listener find you if they want to find out a little bit more about your work, your YouTube channel, your maybe your website, things like that? And is there any final point is there a final point that maybe you'd like to leave us with today?
Yes, yes. Thanks. So yeah, you can find me on YouTube, The Mental Health Show with Robert Grigore.
Mm,
It's the same title for my Spotify, Apple podcast as well.
mm.
So you can just find me there. Website's grigorecounseling.com. It's two L's because I'm in Canada. So Grigore counseling, COUNSELLING.com. That's a mouthful, I know, but you just search the mental health show. My links will be down there as
It'll be,
well.
yeah, be in the show notes. Yeah.
Thanks. And the final, the final message I think is that I want to tell people to keep going.
Mm,
Like whatever you've been through has been really challenging. Don't compare it to other people. Yours is for you. It's been
mm,
really challenging. Nobody escapes childhood unscathed.
mm.
Everybody's been through something, and yours is whatever it is that you're dealing with. You're watching this show, listening to the show for a reason. You're tuning in because you want to get help, and the number one thing you have to do is keep going because you can't quit. You can't lose if you don't quit, right? If you keep going, you're going to, that's an Alex Hormozy thing. If you keep going, right, you're gonna get there. So you'll find the right tool, the right strategy. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You just need to heal, and to do that, you got to keep going.
Oh, I love that. Great guidance, and especially the comparison because I know I felt guilt in the past from like, well, it's not that bad compared, but that's a very, I found that was a very wrong way to treat myself, and it wasn't a very good act of self-love those years back. So, yeah,
Exactly.
love that. No, Robert, thanks so much again for coming on today. Appreciate your time and the amount of value you've given us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Johnny.
Awesome. So that concludes our episode for today. Remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.